We're waiting for Nancy Tame, I think. 1, 2. Yep. No, who else? No, that's right. We're just waiting for Nancy. Okay. All right, it's 7 o'clock. I will call the regular February meeting of the Board Finance Committee to order. It is February 23rd at 7 p.m. Welcome, everyone. Hope you're all surviving the interesting New England weather that we're having. First, I'll make the official announcement that the meeting is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's Executive Order of March 12, 2020, pursuant to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have suspended public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirements of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. For this meeting, all members are remote, and as such, all votes will be taken by roll call in accordance with Regulation 940 CMR 29.10 of the open meeting law. Next, the minutes of the January 26th meeting that everyone received from Bill via email.
I move they be approved.
I second.
Thank you. I'm sorry, who seconded?
Dennis.
Oh, I did the
Oh,
first.
Dennis.
Dennis is the second.
Dennis second. Okay. Any corrections, changes, anything like that to them? If not, we'll have a roll call vote. Ed?
Aye.
Chris Bowen?
Aye.
Paul McLaughlin?
Aye.
Dennis?
Aye.
Bill Wall?
Aye.
Chris Woodbury?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Under correspondence, unfortunately, I received an email from Tom Parker, who has resigned. I'm not sure how long he's been on the committee, but I'm thinking it's over 15 years. He just said he was resigning with regret, and so we are now down to 8 people.
Mary?
I'm sorry?
First, I would like to echo your comments and extend our thanks and ask you to send a letter officially on our behalf, thanking Tom for his invaluable service to our committee and to the community. And Tom, so you're aware, Mary and I intend to make a joint nomination of Tom for the Meritorious Service Award.
Which is due tomorrow, so send me your stuff.
Yeah.
I saw in the paper when they talked about the tire fire, that he had been on the fire department. I knew he was on the fire department. I did not know he retired as a lieutenant, and he was on it 30-some years. So, and I suspect shortly after that is when he got on Finance Committee, but I'm not sure exactly. So, yep, that's due tomorrow, Bill.
Thank you, Mary. Did you catch that, Tom?
I did. Yep. That's very nice.
Yeah, I think he's been a faithful member, and we're going to miss him a lot because he had a lot of institutional knowledge. Okay, moving along to liaison reports. School committee, Chris Woodbury.
We did meet beginning of the month of February. We went over the budget, which we all know is coming.
Mm-hmm.
Had a discussion on that. We are starting fall 2 sports for the district, which is good for the children of the district, so they can have some resemblance of normal going forward. Just a reminder that food services for the district is still available for any child that wants it within the district. There is drop-off points. They are also delivering it to remote students. And that's about all we went over. I would like to have someone else on the committee take this from me. I'd appreciate it because I have a lot on my plate.
That was going to be my next question. You know, whether I know you and I had talked about it a little bit before, and so I was about to say, and if you're still interested, let's ask for a volunteer to be on the committee. One thing, to be the reporter for the school committee, because Chris has a lot on his plate. And the only thing I would ask Chris is that when you get the meeting notices, you forward them to whoever else whoever else is on the committee.
I can definitely do that.
Just because I know one of the problems starting with COVID that Paul Bouvier had was finding out when the meetings were and getting the links to them. I know that pretty soon we're going to be able to go, or even now, I'm not sure. We're real close to being able to go live from Wire Village the way we go live from Town Hall, but the meetings are being held remotely. So I know that the recordings get sent to be broadcast on Spencer Cable Access, but they may or may not be live. So it's just a matter of communication, if you don't mind. So anybody willing to?
First, Mary, note for the record, Nancy's arrived at the meeting.
Yep, I just saw her. I said hi, Nancy. It's okay. So the anyway, would anybody like to essentially virtually attend the school committee meetings and give a report at each of our meetings, sort of a summary of what they did at the school committee meetings? Anybody raising their hands?
So, Mary, as I've done in the past, I'm willing to do that until some other member of the FinCom steps up.
Okay, that's fine. I will try to. So, Chris, if you could send me the links as well, because and then so between Bill and I, maybe one or the other of us, unless somebody else wants to.
So the last 3 minutes of what you said, Mary, and then I'm muted.
I can definitely do that.
Okay, thanks.
We didn't hear 2 or 3 minutes of what you said, Mary.
I said if Chris would send both you and me the links to the meetings when he gets the notice with the agenda, if he would send them to both of us, then between you and me, we'll get to some of the meetings virtually until we get someone else on the committee who's willing to take it on.
Very
That's
good. Can you
what
hear?
I said.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All set. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Next is the building committee. The designers.
Actually, I had a couple. Excuse me. I had a couple questions for Chris on the report.
Okay.
Chris, has the school committee discussed? I know the governor just came out today with pushing to have 5 days in person elementary, and I also know none of the teachers or school staff have been, aside from the nurses, have been vaccinated yet, and that's definitely a cause for concern. Yeah, that's my main concern. If you have a response, or if you can raise it with the.
Yeah, Bill, we have an upcoming meeting. I'll definitely bring that question to him. The plan is still hybrid currently, depending on what the caseload is within the district. It's been working out very good. We've had very minimal COVID-19 cases within the district, whether it's students and or faculty. So that's kudos to everybody doing their part within the district, plus planning of the superintendent and everyone else involved district-wide. Big shout out to the custodians. They do wipe down throughout the school day. At the end of the school day, they also go through and clean, and they also do the deep cleaning on the weekends, which definitely helps.
That's good. And the teachers have been in the buildings as well, whether the kids have been there or not. So even with hybrid
That is correct.
or with remote, the teachers have all been in the buildings as well. Is that it, or any more
No,
questions,
that's it.
comments? Okay. All right, the school building committee, designers, I'm sorry, did somebody? No? The designer selection subcommittee, so we have not met officially since our last finance committee meeting. Last Monday, week ago Monday, though, we did have a walkthrough for any additional designers, architects who wanted to apply, because as you may recall, we only got 3 applications, 3 proposals, and so Mass School Building Authority wanted more than that. So there were 2 additional proposals that did not come in time in December. And so we anticipate that those 2 will be submitting. So we have the 3 originals. And then I believe there were 4 or 5 more firms. I think there were 4 that walked through a week ago Monday. So I anticipate that we will get some additional responses, and those are due in the next day or 2. Once we get them, the 3 Spencer representatives, the superintendent, business manager Gary Suda, and myself will review them. We will meet probably in April with Mass School Building Authority. They meet twice a month. And so we have requested to meet with them either the 1st or the 3rd Tuesday, I believe, of the month, whenever they meet, to review the proposals. There will be 12 of them. I don't know who the 12 are. And the designer will be recommended by that committee at 12. So that's where we're at right now. Things are moving along at the pace that they move along at, but the consultants anticipate that we'll still be pretty much on time for coming to both towns for a year from now for town meeting, so a year and a half.
So will that be the annual of 2022, Mary?
Yep, May of 22.
And
Any other
Tom,
questions? Oh, I'm sorry.
I know that some of the debt has been paid off, I think, from reading Tom's memo, so there should be some flexibility in anticipation of the Prouty debt exclusion.
Right, Wire Village will go off. So just at the same time, Wire Village will go off. At the same time, they'll be asking for Prouty to come on. So there will be some, no idea what the numbers will be, but there will be a chunk that will smoothly transition. Any other questions? All right, if not, FMPC, Paul and Bill?
Yeah, we actually met last Tuesday virtually and accepted in the questionnaire that Mary put together and did an excellent job on. And we now need to determine, and Mary was going to do a lot of the legwork to find out what was involved with being able to send out that questionnaire in addition to posting it on the website and putting it into the new leader and what the associated costs would be in order to be able to send it out. So that's kind of where we're at right at the moment. I know Mary's looked into some of it, But probably the next time we meet, we'll make a determination as to whether we're going to agree to or approve the amount of money necessary in order to be able to go through the mailing process.
Right, and I actually got a second quote today. So it came in so late, I haven't had time to email you guys, but you'll see it tomorrow. But the survey is already up on the town website. It went up today.
Mary, is there any like current, soon to go out general mailing from the town to the public that it could be included in?
Nope. Because the magic is always including it with the census, but it wasn't, the census was out before the committee approved the.
Well, even if we mail it out with the tax bills, you get a whole lot more people than you do otherwise.
Tax bills have gone out already as well.
When are you looking for responses for this?
The committee, Paul, you might want to speak to what the committee thought about.
Well, it's nothing that we're going to be able to respond to immediately, because we all kind of collectively realize that there's probably not going to be a lot of money available to do some of these things until, maybe 2023. So it does not require us having to get answers back within the next few weeks or the next month. But obviously, once we get people notified that they can find the questionnaire on the website. And it was also mentioned that there was a possibility that the school offered to put some of the questionnaires into some paperwork that may end up going home with the kids. But then the obvious question is, well, who's going to print the information? Is the school department going to print it, or are we going to pay somebody to do it? So
Paul, the quotes I got were for enough copies to go in the leader, go in the schools, and have some left over for town meeting and things like that. But I mean, it was a, you guys can decide, what you want to do and how many you want to send out, but just so you know, the
Right.
quotes, I got enough
So
quotes for that.
when does the next tax bill get mailed out to folks? Tom?
In the summer, I think.
Well, it doesn't sound like we may need a big response before then, so that would be a catch-all to cover everyone between the schools and the tax bill.
I'm hoping that, putting it in the leader. I personally am hoping that people respond online, because the last one we did, that we sent out with the tax bill, I'm the one that wound up entering into the SurveyMonkey system somewhere in the 700 or 800 surveys. So I am just hoping that we get more people to answer online than in paper.
There may also be interns who can help with that, Mary, from colleges, etc.
Yeah, well, we tried. I mean, the last time I tried to, and a few people answered. I mean, a few people helped, but anyway, but that, just saying, it's pretty responsive, and I mean, online. And if you folks would just all go give it a whirl just to see how it works, I would appreciate the test.
Well, the thing is, from the vaccine rollout, I've learned that a whole lot of people in town don't have either computer access or computer savvy. So if we want fullest input, yes, I can easily enter a thing on the computer, but a whole lot of other people I can't assume have that ability or comfort level. So if we want maximum response, we have to do maximum outreach.
No kidding. And that's what we did the last time. I mean, that's what we've done every time we've done this. We've been pretty good about getting really, really impressive numbers of responses.
I don't know if they can be sent or delivered to Howe Village or those places. That's if you have a drop off of the forms to the senior congregate communities, those are probably the highest level of folks who don't have the comfort level with the computers.
Right, and so one of the issue, as FMPC talked about, has more to do with the whole COVID thing, because when the last round of surveys, we had the forms, we not only mailed them out, but the paper and pencil forms were available at the senior center, at the library, at the town hall, and there were people at those places to help if anyone wanted to do it online as well. I mean, we're dealing with a couple of different things because of COVID, but we'll do it. We'll get it out. Anything else on that? Thank you, Paul. Okay, next is Town Administrator Report, the initial FY 2022 budget presentation and state budget outlook. Always a
Okay,
moving target.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to walk through this preliminary budget, this fiscal, what I'm calling fiscal projection 1 with the committee. On the revenue side, we have the 2.5% allowed increase valued at $383,809. This is new revenue for next year. Using the estimated new growth number of $100,000 added to that. I was able to, or I should say I was informed that the state aid number increased slightly. The unrestricted general government aid number was increased by 3.5% for next year, but some of the other line items in the state aid number were lower than last year. So the net increase ends up only being on the state aid number about $30,000. On the local receipts revenue number, I've bumped up the motor vehicle excise tax estimate by about $110,000. You'll recall that last year I dialed back the local receipts number and brought that to the Finance Committee for their approval before town meeting to better reflect the recession, the downturn caused by the pandemic. So after reviewing the most recent motor vehicle excise tax collections to date, I'm confident that I can bump that number up for next year. I kept at a lower rate, however, the meals excise tax estimate. I've level funded that from last year, the lower number dialed down last year to better reflect, or to more accurately reflect the pandemic's impact on restaurants. So there's about $110,000 dollar increase in the local estimated receipts. On the expenses side, a few highlights to mention to the committee. Excuse me. The combined savings from the LED streetlight conversion, which is represented at a $55,000 decrease in the street lighting budget, combined with some expiring vehicle lease payments in the highway budget, has allowed me to build in the lease payments on 2 new highway vehicles, a one-ton 10-wheel dump truck and a 10-wheel dump truck and a 1-ton F-350. I should say the Capital Committee has now begun their review. They met at 6 p.m. today to start their review on all the capital requests, including these 2 as well. But for the time being, I have those 2 capital items, their lease payments, funded in the Highway Department's operating budget. I've bumped up the snow and ice removal account by a pretty significant amount for next year to better reflect a more typical winter season, plowing season here in New England. We were lucky last year for a light winter, but this year is turning out to be a more typical winter, and this is one only, I think, 2 accounts that the Department of Revenue allows municipalities to a deficit spend during the fiscal year. And as a result, communities, and I think you all know this, communities typically underfund the snow and ice account with a plan to bring the deficit to town meeting in the spring. The larger that deficit is, the larger the draw on free cash and the subsequent draw away from the capital fund, the funded capital requests. The other highlights here in the expenses side, I'm recommending a new full-time union position in the Highway Department, a facilities maintenance lead. That would basically be a first point of contact with contractors, vendors, to manage the most public buildings here in town. In addition to providing day-to-day operational and repair services, the position would be given a truck with a plow and would be responsible also for the clearing of snow and ice from steps and sidewalks. The salary and benefits for this new position is about $65,000. I'm also recommending a part-time non-union recording secretary in Otis. The goal here is to have someone dedicated to taking the minutes of the Planning Board, CBA, and possibly the Conservation Commission, which would, my hope here is to implement some efficiencies in the department. In the last, year, there have been some very late Planning Board meetings, and the preparation of minutes is something that takes quite a while on a 3 or 4 hour meeting. And it's my hope that we can find someone, a part-time employee, non-benefited, to do this work, which will then free up the other senior clerks for addressing the other day-to-day operations in the department. I have this valued at about $3,000 annually for the year at a rate of $16.15. Now, the position doesn't exist in the town's personnel bylaw, so we would have to go to town meeting first to amend the bylaw to include this new position. I've noted that in my budget filing. And I'm also recommending a placeholder budget and notice and expenses of $5,000 to account for the annual software maintenance fee that will be incurred when we implement the new e-permitting software. This is, as you know, this is something that the Board of Selectmen has included in one of my goals for the fiscal year, basically to make processes and procedures in Otis more efficient, more responsive to the public. And this e-permitting software is something that I think is going to go a long way towards doing that. So my plan is to fund any one-time implementation costs for the e-permitting platform out of free cash. And then I've built into the Otis expenses line a placeholder budget to account for the yearly software maintenance, annual maintenance fee. Today is the deadline that was indicated in the RFP, and I've received, I think, 7 or 8 responses. They'll be reviewed by a committee I've appointed here in Town Hall, and I'll have more to share on that in the coming weeks. As far as the Spencer East Brookfield Regional School District assessment, the numbers I used last week when I was finalizing this budget filing were numbers that were presented at the Regional School District workshop in January. And since then, the school district has issued a subsequent version 2 budget with a higher number. So the delta has grown a bit. So in the budget filing that you have with you this evening, it shows the regional school district request the net increase of 4% over last year, and you can see I'm unable to fund that full amount, so I'm short by about $82,000 in meeting their 4% net increase for fiscal 22. The issue now is that the delta has grown because the school district has, in their version 2 budget, increased the total assessment to 6.83%, which is valued at $621,692. So I had a conversation with Dr. Haughey today and Mr. Suda to talk about, where we are, and this is, as you all know, this is an iterative process where the dialogue between the regional school district and the town gets pretty detailed. So, I'm hoping that there'll be a way we can find a place in the middle. But as of today, there's a pretty significant delta between what I've presented to the board and what I'm presenting to you this evening, and what the regional school district has most recently issued in their version 2 budget dated February 9th. So there'll be more discussions, more conversations, more presentations, I think, coming during the month of March. The Bay Path Regional School assessment actually went down for fiscal 22. They're not requesting any additional funding over the minimum required in state law. And we have, for the out-of-district vocational education and transportation program, 1 student expected to enroll at Smith next year, and 1 student expected to enroll next year at Tantascwa. These are students who are moving up a grade. As you all know, these numbers can change, and typically do change in August, when we learn of potentially new students enrolling at one of these schools. So those are the high points of the fiscal 22 budget. I'm happy to answer any questions as we make our way through the month of March. There will be further refinements, further discussions with the regional school district, and we'll go from there. So happy to answer any questions the committee has this evening.
Mary?
Bill.
So first, Tom, thank you for that detailed update and your hard work so far. It's appreciated, as always. As I mentioned at the select board meeting last night, it's pretty certain that by mid-March, there'll be some substantial support going to the school district that the town may not see as much, that may not only resolve the 80,000, but the school district extra money on top of that. I think we need to wait and see how that plays out before we put a whole lot of energy into. Certainly, we want you, as the selectman said last night, to have conversations with the school district, but I think, and this is to Mr. Woodbury as well, and understanding that the school district is going to get a lot of help that the town isn't very soon, and that's going to benefit the school district financially considerably. And until we know those numbers, there shouldn't be a pressure for the town to not increase or keep its services. Secondly, you mentioned savings from the LED. I saw Nancy's email in your response earlier today. So first of all, I appreciate Nancy asking those questions, because it's the function of the FinCom to ask the questions and push the envelope, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate your quick response, and I look forward to your full detailing of the savings that the town has received and what future savings we can potentially, or grant money we can receive in regard to the green communities effort. In regard to the adding of the highway position, that was funded, I believe, in the budget at one point. And it's not just buildings, but facilities would include the cemetery or any of the parks, or the outside of the town hall, or the grounds, basically. And there is a job description that was written when the prior position was funded. So I didn't know if you had had the opportunity to locate that, because that was very comprehensive. Adam Gaudet, a prior administrator, did an outstanding job with that. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. And if you can't locate that for some reason, I can check my files and see if I still have it. Those are my comments for now, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Questions, comments?
Mary,
the-
I've got one if I could.
Sure.
Years ago, we used to give a stipend to the Board of Selectmen, each member, and they forfeited that years ago because of the financial issues that we've had. It seems as if we're funding our departments a lot better than we have in the past. Has there been any talk of reestablishing that stipend?
There has not. And the selectmen used to get a stipend as well. There hasn't been any conversation about that under in any departments, but I'm sure it's
I was talking
something
about the selectmen. Yeah, I was talking specifically about the selectmen because it's sort of like a part-time job, what they have to do.
Yeah. And there used to be a small stipend for the clerk of the finance committee, but other than that, right, the selectmen had, and that hasn't come up in recent memory. Since, it seems like we've had one financial crisis after another, but you're right, Tom, is that something we could look at?
Certainly, yeah. It's not something I've been asked to look at, but I certainly can, and I'll share it with the Board of Selectmen and gauge their sense of it.
Right. It has to be 10 years.
Yeah, I think so. Considering all the time and effort they have to put into what they do, all things considered, I don't know. It seems like they certainly earn it.
And it was not a great deal of money, as I recall, either.
No, but it also sends a message about how we as a community value public service and the hours that you need to put in. So while they had the right intention about saying, well, we don't want to take money when we have to lay people off, the fact is now that we're restoring people, we need to recognize that the select board needs to send the message that we value people's service. And when they say, well, we won't take money, then they kind of maybe are sending the message they don't want to send.
Yep. Now that, well, especially now if we think we're going to be able to restore town services and things like that, then you're right. Thank you for bringing that up, Bill. Anyone else? Questions, comments? All right, then we can move on to old business. Oh, and just so, this is probably the time to just say to everybody that the next Finance Committee meeting will be joint with the Board of Selectmen, March 9th. So in only a couple of weeks. And that's when we'll begin with the budget presentation. So you all have it on your agenda. So it will, we'll be digging in, starting in the next couple of weeks to get into the details of the things that Tom has outlined today. Thank you. All right, old business. Request for transfer from the reserve fund of, Tom, you're at a different number though after we talked today to fund the site visits.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I can if since we talked this afternoon, I can sort of reintroduce this again. So, so the request here, the original request from the architect was to fund 5 additional site visits at $750 each that were not included in the original contract that I signed with the architect that only included 2 site visits. Since the last Finance Committee meeting, I went back into this account number, and there is a little bit left. There's $1,391.50 left in this account. So I'm able to actually fund 1 additional site visit plus a little bit. There's still a little bit more in there. I had a conversation with the architect today, and in the spirit of compromise, he's offered to take away 1 of the 5 additional site visits and just request 4 additional site visits. So just the quick math on this, I already have 1 funded. So if the committee wishes to fund 3 additional site visits this evening, that would require a transfer of $1,608.50. And I also wanted to make the point, I understand that there were some concerns at the last Finance Committee meeting, and giving this some more thought. If folks are looking to place blame here, I'd like to offer that it be placed on me and not the architect, because these were for services rendered, okay? And shame on me for not having negotiated more site visits in the original contract negotiations with the architect. 2 was certainly not close to being enough. And given the age of the building, the potential for unseen conditions and change orders, I really should have included more than 2 site visits. So, I asked for the committee support. The architect has made a good faith effort to negotiate. He's taken away 1 of the 5. So the new request here would be a transfer of $1,608.50.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
So Tom, through you to Tom, the concern was that he did site visits and he missed big things that he should have caught, and that cost us a lot of money. So how does your proposal address that?
Bill, I missed that. I didn't, could you just explain that a little bit more?
The fire chief raised concerns that certain things should have been done that weren't done. And I'm not sure the exact order, but I remember the fire chief raising concerns. There were concerns the architect missed things.
Okay,
What
I
are
can address
those questions?
Yeah, I can, and I understand now. Through you, Madam Chair, to you, Mr. Shemuth. I think what you're asking is the question about, the question about the magnetic door holds. I think that's what you're asking about.
Yes.
This is a situation where the fire code and the state building code intersect in a little bit of a gray area. I called the building inspector in Shrewsbury to talk about this. Technically, magnetic door holds are not required in the building code. Okay, so the way this works is magnetic door holds, or I should say fire doors in a school or a large public building function properly when they're closed, because it inhibits the spread of the fire in a building. So municipalities install these magnetic door holds as a convenience factor so that the fire doors don't have to be open and closed all the time. The problem with fire doors where there's not a magnetic door hold is that people tend to put wooden blocks under these doors, under these fire doors in hallways. And that's where the problem is, because in a fire, if a fire door is propped open with a wooden block, it's not going to function properly. So there should have been better agreement or better dialogue between the architect at the outset with the fire chief, and a detailed discussion about incorporating a new magnetic door hold system into the building. But at the time, it wasn't known that the magnetic door hold system was improperly wired. That wasn't determined until after the system was pulled apart. So it's a situation where, you know, technically the architect is saying, look, it's not in the state building code, and he's technically right, but that's not really, you know, there should have been more coordination, I should say, between all of these parties involved in this code analysis to make sure that they were on the same page. And I think it's a fair statement to say that that there could have been more coordination. So I hope that answers the question.
Nancy has a question, Mary.
Nancy? Oh, Nancy, you're muted, Nancy. You have to unmute yourself. Nancy, you have to unmute yourself. You're muted. We can't hear you. Nancy.
I'm
There you
so
go.
used to the Zoom.
Oh,
I'm
right.
looking for Zoom knobs, and there aren't any. Well, I read what Gary Woodbury wrote, and according to what he had written, if I understand it correctly, they didn't need to buy a new magnetic door system, that the architect actually misspoke, that what was there was you were able to link it in to the the fire alarm system. What wasn't working was one of the magnets in the door, and that had to be replaced. And the guy ordered that, and he did replace it. And the wiring had to be fixed, I guess, but that's something that an electrician does. So I'm still trying to understand why an architect has to come out and inspect or look at this when it doesn't really have anything to do with an architectural plan. It had to do with the electrician fixing the wiring and buying another magnet. So maybe it's a lack of communication. I mean, there seems to be a lot of lack of communication here. And I don't know, it's very hard for me to say, oh yes, we'll pay for this. When there are other people who know much better exactly what went on. And I don't think that the architect that we heard from was completely giving us the whole story, because they didn't need to replace, those magnets. They only needed to replace one of them, according to Gary, his note. So I still don't really understand what's going on. I know we have to vote on this, and it just makes me want to quit this whole thing, this whole finance.
So I would say,
you get so much information bad, and then when you ask for it, and then you get all of these different conflicting things, and then we're asked, should we pay for this or not? And it's kind of difficult to even know. Do you understand what I'm saying?
right, and so I would say that's so that the architect has already agreed to reduce his charge by one visit. So that would account for the visit to take care of the electric. If that was an extra visit, then
Was
it's
that
already
he's talking about? Because I'm not sure
Well,
about
it
the
doesn't-
other visits either,
well,
because the other things that Gary mentioned were the line, water not coming in or something into an electrical room, which makes sense. But that was something that the contractor was already had a plan for, and he was coming in from the other side of the building, and didn't seem like he needed the architect for that either. So I don't know. I'm just saying, I don't feel like making a decision and saying, I mean, if we're gonna, be asked to vote on this, I would just say no, because I am confused.
Madam Chair,
Madam Chair,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Madam Chairman Gary Woodbury, can I speak?
Sure.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just to clarify, I did speak with Tom today, and Mr. Goldberg did take that charge off. That's where the $750 is off on the wiring. And again, it was miscommunication between several people on that part. The further I checked, and I didn't do it until late this evening, I apologize for that. And what Nancy is saying is true. There was one magnet. It was a wiring that was that they had to replace. It's a wires internally because they didn't meet the wiring code. And unfortunately, that's a foreseen thing that I guess nobody would have seen. As far as the redirection of the pipe, that is the truth, and I think Tom would attest to that. However, I will say this: in the end, that's why we have a general contractor who oversees that. In the end, it's going to benefit us in the long run. My concern more than anything, and I want everybody to be aware, I did send that email. That email was signed personally by me, not as any capacity within the town, but as a taxpayer. So I just want to be clear on that. That's why I avoided the issue, other than saying that we all do have a responsibility. I think any further, and I'm sure we're going to face it as we grow and we go on. But to satisfy Nancy, it was critical that, in my opinion, that we understood, and not to take a shot at Mr. Goba, is I think that what was relayed to him wasn't relayed right, and that he understood that the magnets were not compatible. That's why he spoke twice at your last meeting saying, it's because they weren't compatible. And it was really a wiring issue. And I think, Tom, you and I talked about that. We know pretty much where we are now, I think. So
Right.
I just want to be clear on that. And that's why he did take that one off, which made me feel a lot better as far as moving the pipe after a long conversation. Again, I think it should have been there in the first place. However, we do have a gas line there, and I just think the way that it was laid out may have had some of the responsibility on it, not so much overall on the general contractor. Unfortunately, the gas line in that building, which is large now because we converted it to the new furnaces, is my understanding is that was more of the problem. And again, I'm finding this out late in the day, and I apologize. I usually get the information prior to. After a conversation I had today, I figured it was better to go back and double check. So that's where we are, but he did take that one away, which I explained to Tom earlier this evening, that, that does satisfy me, because I thought that, based on the information of saying that they were not compatible, which wasn't the case. And again, I want to verify what Nancy's saying. It becomes a communication issue on everybody's part involved, and I'll take some of that blame myself. However, I think it's still, and I won't back down, it's my responsibility as a selectman to make sure that we are getting the most in the best bang for our dollar. So thank you, Madam Chair, for letting me speak. Thank you.
You're
Madam
welcome.
Chair.
Thank you. Yes. Who's that? Bill Shemmeth?
Yes. So
Okay.
Tom, through you to the administrator, even if the FinCom approves the additional visits, that doesn't necessarily mean that they need to use everyone if they're not necessary. So I would ask that whatever motion is adopted to approve the visits request that you determine the need for each one before you authorize it going forward.
It's my understanding, Tom, is this correct, that the visits have already been made?
Yeah, the visits have all taken place. The professional services have been rendered already. That's right.
And those were for what you consider necessary things.
Through you, Madam Chair, that's correct.
And I will say that the nature of this contract notwithstanding, it's not atypical for somebody, for consultants and architects and things like that, to specify a certain number of site visits and then also put in an additional cost in case there are additional, and more than that. They'll specify a particular number and then they'll say, and if we need any, here's what it's going to cost. I mean, they're upfront. That begs the question of how well they plan, or how many they anticipate they need. That's not what it's about. I'm just saying it's typical in this kind of contract because there are things that come up that are unforeseen. So the existence of it is not anything unusual in the grand scheme of things. It's not about the merits of this question. I'm just saying that it's
what I want to say is
standard.
the library project goes forward. We can't afford these miscommunication issues with that project or future projects. So I would ask through you to the administrator, given the lessons he's learned from this experience, how is he going to adjust the process going forward to ensure there's adequate communication with the library project and other projects going forward?
So through you, Madam Chair, I can answer that question. It's a good question. In the fee negotiations I had with C.A. Crowley, the selected engineer for the library improvements, I have 6 site visits identified and funded in my contract with them. So I'm hoping that will be sufficient for that project.
Nancy?
Is the person that you have in the budget, the person that you want to hire, facilities manager, would he be the person going forward who would say, check in on and look at some of these issues to see, for example, if you needed to call in the architect or whatever it was for something, or could it just be handled by the guys who are doing the work, basically? I mean, is that part of what his job description is going to be, is to look in on all of these types of maintenance things that are going on?
Yeah, that's
so this won't happen. Maybe there'll be better communication or better oversight of this rather than having people just say, oh yeah, we need to come in and look at this again and again and again, and whatever.
Well, yeah, that's through you, Madam Chair. That's correct. Yeah, we're hoping. So the facilities oversight in this town is accomplished by a number of different people in a very inefficient manner. The department heads have a role to varying degrees. The utilities and facilities superintendent has a role in varying degrees. My assistant Brenda has a role in some of the town hall maintenance oversight. It's largely decentralized and inefficient, and it just comes down to really to the budget and what we're able to fund. So what you're asking, Nancy, is a good question, and I'm hopeful that we can find someone that's going to this facilities maintenance lead that will, as I said earlier, handle the day-to-day upkeep. The changing of the light bulb, the broken switch, the minor plumbing repairs, and so forth and so on. But it's also someone who is, looking after systems maintenance. So we're talking about, inspection of elevators, boiler inspections, to make sure that, or to sort of change the way we're addressing these building and their oversight. Instead of reacting, it gets us out ahead of these building projects. So that's the idea. That's the idea behind this position.
Does the school have, the school system, the different schools, do they have someone who maintains all of those things? Or would this person be shared with them? Or do they have someone who does it, a facilities manager?
They do. The school, as far as I know, I met him 2 years ago. I assume he's still there. They have a full-time building and grounds manager.
Tom?
So yeah.
Currently, we do not have one. We do have lead custodians at each school that are tasked with the same responsibilities that he had.
Oh, is Eric? Eric is no longer hired by the district?
I believe there's no longer a grounds and facilities manager. That is correct.
Okay.
Oh,
So Chris, that's something the school committee should revisit, given the problems the town has for not having a position like that. We can't afford the taxpayers to suffer that on the school side.
That's why we have lead custodians at each school that is tasked with the same responsibilities. We'll all meet together with Mr. Suter and go over the plan. But I will follow up with the school committee and voice your opinion to them.
Thank you.
Do we have a maintenance manual? I know that Leicester, when they built their new high school, they very proudly announced that they have a maintenance schedule. So they schedule a lot of things in that manual, and it gives, a really good guideline and for someone to follow. Do we have anything like that for our schools?
well, for the schools are managed by the school department, not by the town. So, I mean, if they want to
So
do
do
something,
they
they
have
come
that?
to us with the bills. No, I have not seen that they have that.
Does our town have that for all of our different town buildings? Do they have a maintenance, let's say manuals, maintenance guidelines for how often you would check a boiler, or, what the different things are? I mean, I don't know exactly what it is, but I know that when I worked in industry, we always had, maintenance guidelines for different buildings. And when you change things, when you change filters, when you change, all of those schedules to maintain the building in good order. Do we
Well,
have that?
Building, and I think what Chris said about the lead custodians in terms of filters and those kinds of things, they're on top of those.
Okay, but they don't have a document, let's say a guide or a maintenance manual that they follow and report back on? No.
I've been out of there a long time. I never saw one, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And I've been out of there a
Okay.
long time, so I have no idea.
Okay, thanks.
Through the
Any-
chair,
Is that Chris?
it is.
Okay, Chris Woodbury. Yes, go right ahead.
I am happy that he took off one of the site visits. I do have a problem with the site visit for the rebuilt asphalt drive and walkway because that was a new walkway before they did this project that they put that big machine on, and I think it was an error by the general contractor of why we had to have that redone. I still hold by my convictions that I believe the general contractor should pay him and not the town.
And I'm not sure. So did the general contractor? But the general contractor replaced the ground that he damaged, correct?
He tore up the
So-
new walkway
Right, but then
and then
did he?
replaced it,
in
correct?
and replaced it, okay. So,
But it still needed a site visit from the architect for it,
okay,
which
so
we
I
didn't
don't-
have one originally when we put it in.
did not have what?
When we installed that, we did not have someone come out and visit the site when we originally had that
Oh,
walkway
I see.
done.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
Madam
And-
Chair, I can provide, if it's helpful, I can provide some commentary. So, so the original plans called for the trenching of that earth between the building and the water main and the street, through the walkway. So, what the plan had called for was the trenching and then the restoration of the walkway with some infrared asphalt seams on both sides of the trenching. But the concern that was expressed to me was that, gee, look, we just spent, or actually it was a grant, if I recall. We just received a substantial grant the prior year to put in a brand new, crescent-shaped walkway. So as a workaround, there was a discussion, that followed was, how do we, proceed? Can we bring the water line, down the connection further up the hill and around? And it was decided, it was told to me that would be a more expensive workaround to remobilize than to simply replace the entire crescent-shaped walkway. So that's what ended up happening. I understand the background. I understand the concern that was raised about the new asphalt walkway that was just put in the prior year. So that's what was agreed upon, that the contractor would, in connecting the water line from the main to the building, would in the process restore the entire asphalt walkway. So that was what the outcome was.
Madam Chair?
Is that Bill? Bill
Yes.
Simmons? Is that, okay.
For you to the administrator, would we have, aside from the original mistake from the contractor, would we have had to pay for that additional site visit? If we had to pay for the additional site visit because of the contractor's error, then I agree with Chris, the contractor should bear the cost. Maybe that means we pay the architect for now and ask you to seek redress with the contractor.
So there's just to be clear, I understand what you're saying through you, Madam Chair. There's no fault, as I see it. There's no fault of the general contractor. He was just carrying out what was called out for on the plans. So, but the solution here was, so what we ended up agreeing to with the contractor is a change order to include the full restoration of that crescent-shaped walkway. There's no, as I see it, there's no fault. This is not the fault of the general contractor. This is the construction team reacting to the concern expressed by town officials about, hey, look, we just put this new asphalt walkway in the prior year. How are you going to restore this in its entirety? That's at the heart of the question. There wasn't any, negligence or oversight on the general contractor's part, as I see it.
I mean, it seems to me that there would have been some excavation anyway in order to bring the pipes in. So, yeah, it sounds like the general contractor was doing what they were supposed to do. And it also sounds like if that was what had to happen to bring the pipes in, if there had to be excavation, and they did to bring the pipes in, then the architect very likely would have had to come anyway to inspect once the process was completed. So
That's correct. Yep.
This seems to me as if it doesn't sound like, it sounds like the digging had to go on, and that the architect would be coming back to inspect the digging, no matter what the issue would. Not only the digging, I'm sure it had also to do with the connections that were made and things like that as well, not just to inspect the finished product.
Right, and I would also add, Madam Chair, it also involved, that site visit also involved the analysis of where that water line would be brought in near the stairwell. So it was that change order, moving the pipe connection from one side of the door to the other, involved quite a bit of analysis to find a location, appropriate location, to bring the water line into the building. So it wasn't just the walkway that the architect was involved with. It was an analysis of the interior of the building as well, to study, how that water line would actually enter into the building.
Right.
So can I just go back to the original document? It says,
yep.
We had additional site visits. Number 1, relocation of sprinkler room supply. So he charged us for that, not for that and the walkway. Number 2 was rebuilt asphalt drive and walkway. 3, requisition review. 4, electrical inspection, and another plan for January 28th. So he didn't lump them together. So that is not the truth.
Oh, okay.
There was one separate for the rebuilt the asphalt drive and walkway. There was a 30-ton machine that was sitting and dug up the rest of the walkway, and that was not kosher. So there were people that wanted the walkway to be put back to what we had done before the senior center project was started. To me, it was a contractor error that if the machine was too big to safely be on that material, he should have found another way to do it. Original plan was to cut the walkway and to patch it and seal it. But because the machine was on it, it ripped it up. Let's tell the truth now. I've actually saw it with my own eyes.
Right, sorry. Okay, just so I'm sorry if I conflated the two. I don't have the list in front of me. That wasn't my intent to conflate those two site visits. But my understanding in earnest here is that it was expressed to the construction team that trenching the earth to make the connection and then cutting through the asphalt was viewed as unsatisfactory. That in using those infrared seams to repair that trenching was viewed as unsatisfactory, and I understand why. I understand that. That's because what the message to me was, look, we just have a brand new walkway there. That's how I saw it happening.
And still, all that being said, the issue is that the sidewalk and the trenching had to be replaced, no matter what the cost, no matter how egregious or any of those things. It is highly likely that the architect would have had to come back anyway, because there was, because the land was disturbed. If they had not brought in the big piece of equipment and they still had to patch up the holes that they made, etc., the architect would still have had to come back. It just sounds like this one was, it turned into a much bigger project, but it doesn't sound to me like it wouldn't. I don't think we can make the judgment that just because it turned into a bigger project didn't mean the architect wouldn't have had to come back to inspect anyway.
I think the question becomes, though, does the contractor bear not the whole responsibility? Because if the architect had to come back for other things, we would have had to pay for that. But should the contractor bear some of the responsibility? We shouldn't make the architect wait in that case. But I think it's perfectly okay to ask the administrator to further pursue whether the contractor should bear a portion of that site cost visit.
Madam Chair, I'm happy to pursue that.
Okay.
If that's the committee's directive to me, I'm happy to pursue that angle, and I can get in touch with the general contractor and see if I can, have some negotiation around that particular site visit. If that's what the committee would like me to do, I'm happy to do that.
I see Bill Wall raising his hand. So Bill?
Yeah, I just had one question. Is the walkway been repaired or is it still a mess?
No, it's been repaired.
No additional costs of the town?
No, that was one of the change orders.
Okay.
That was one of the change orders.
So did we pay to have them repave that?
That's correct. Yeah, that's right. Right? Yep.
So basically, we took that grant money and threw it out the window, basically, for the walkway. They come in, they put a new walkway. Not only do we pay the general contractor to put that walkway in, because the machine did tear it up. Okay, there was a 30-ton excavator parked on 3 inches of asphalt, which digs it up. Then we have an architect come in to say, yeah, you did it for $750. First, why wasn't our superintendent involved? Why couldn't he have said, hey, this is good, this is what we had, or someone else? It just seems to me that we're spending money on a walkway that we already spent money on. Now we're spending money, $750, and it's not a lot of money. It's a principle to have an architect come back and say, yep, you put the walkway in, excellent job, pay me. It doesn't sound kosher to me. It's just my feelings.
So, like I said, I'm happy to negotiate. I'm happy to negotiate with the general contractor. If the committee wishes to just approve 4 additional site visits, and this one that's in question, the directive to me to negotiate with the general contractor on this. These kind of conversations happen all the time. I'm telling the committee I'm happy to do that, to accommodate that request.
All right, what's your pleasure, members of the committee? Anybody care to make
good.
any?
So what would the dollar value be? What would it be? Would we be voting on?
The dollar value would be, I would be requesting $1,608.50 to fund not 5, but 4 additional site visits. And then the motion can include what we just talked about around negotiating with the general contractor if the committee so wishes. $1,608.50.
So would anyone care to make that motion?
For discussion purposes, I would move that we ask the town administrator to do so.
Okay, thanks, Ed. Second?
Second it, Mary.
Thanks, Bill. Further discussion? Okay, we'll have a roll call vote. Ed?
Aye.
Bill Wall?
What are we voting on?
The motion to pay the architect to transfer $1,608.50 to pay the architect for the site visits, with the request that the town administrator talk to the general contractor to negotiate a partial or all of the payment for the one site visit around the reconstruction of the walk.
Why don't we just wait till he renegotiates it and then we can vote on whatever monies we have to all at once? Can't we do that?
Well, we have a motion on the table, so if that's your choice, if that's the choice of the committee, you can certainly vote no. Alternately, we could certainly vote to pay, to deduct the $750 from the 608 and, making it 900 something, so we could pay part of the bill that's legitimate, that there's no disagreement about, if you would like. So that those are the two choices.
Mary, can I just interject for 1 second?
Chris?
I understand the architect has a job to do. My issue is with the general contractor. So I think this is a fair compromise. Let Tom see if he can get the money back at the very end on this. We'll be made whole. The architect will be made whole on his having to go out.
All right, so as I said, we have a motion, on the table, been made and seconded, and I started the roll call vote. So unless anyone would care to make an amendment to the existing motion, I'll continue with the vote. All right, so let's see. I got Ed, I got Bill Wall. Dennis?
Aye.
Nancy?
Can I abstain? I don't want to say yes or no. I really
Yep,
have
you
no
can-
clue.
Yep, you can
I'd
abstain,
rather say
sure.
no, but I have no idea.
Okay. Paul McLaughlin?
Aye.
Chris Bowen?
Aye.
Chris Woodbury?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. So we have 7 in favor, 1 abstention. Thank you. Okay, next, new business, discussion of reducing the finance committee membership from 11 to 9 members. So as you know, we've had 2 resignations. We only had 10. We were struggling to get an 11th, been struggling for a couple of years. In 2010, we reduced the size of the committee from 15 members to 13. I'm sorry, from 13 members to 11 members. And so we are now at the point, I don't know about the rest of you, but well, I know some of you have been asking, have been out trying to find other people to join. So to reduce the size of the committee would take a town meeting vote, which is why I'm bringing it up now, so that it comes up to everyone's attention. We still, I mean, if we can get 3 more members between now and town meeting, that would be spectacular. That would be wonderful. That would be great. And I would really, really like to see, it would be great if we could get some young folks, some of the, the younger folks in the town as well, to sort of be the legacy people that, could get involved. People like Bill Shemuth, who's been involved since he was in high school. So I just wanted to get, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts?
First, one thing you haven't done yet, Mary, is on the front page of the town website, and maybe Tom can help with this. I know they put the notices that really get folks' attention. So maybe we can have a notice really get people's attention about trying to get additional folks on the FinCom.
I'm planning to do that in the next couple of days. I just have not had that. As you know, Tom, we only heard from Tom a couple of days ago, so this has really just come to a head. But yeah, I was actually going to talk to Brenda about putting that up in the next day or 2. I just really have not had time to address it yet. Bill Wall, Did you have something?
Yeah, basically along the same line, let's give it a little time and see what happens.
Yep.
I know I've been asking around. I'm sure some other people have too. So I think if we advertise a little, maybe we'll get lucky. One way or the other.
Mary, what's the age I mean, if you had a high school kid, or if, say, Mr. Hahi or Dr. Hahi knew of some politically minded students, somebody in student council or something, or if he asked student council kids if they were old enough to join. I mean, I don't know if there's an age requirement. Do you have to be 18?
I believe you have to be a registered voter.
So that's 18, right?
Yeah, and that would be great, but there's also, there used to be a provision, I don't know if there still is, but there used to be a provision to have student representatives on boards. And that school committee, I believe, has some liaisons, but
Actually, the town does. It hasn't been widely enacted, but I don't think it's ever been repealed.
yeah, I didn't think so. I thought it was there, but it had never been,
And that might,
hadn't been used for a long time.
students can now pre-register to vote at age 16, so that you could very well get some younger kids who aren't yet 18 in the pipeline, and then when they turn voting age and there's a vacancy, they could move up.
Yep. It would be good to see some young parents as well, and young parents have way more to do than they need to with all the things that go on with kids, but that would be another target that I would like to encourage, you know.
Have you posted it on SCA, the bulletin board yet?
Haven't done it yet, Bill. I just have not had time. It's the next on my list of things to do. It's this meeting came up just at the wrong time. So I read, you know, sort of the crux of the matter. So that's all. Just throwing it out there for everybody to think about. I think it's important to have 11. I think the more the better. But I also I was thinking about talking to Liz York, the principal of the high school, about exactly, you know, about exactly that, identifying if somebody or one or two kids who might be interested.
Why would you? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Bay Path would be their principal as well, because some Spencer kids go there as well.
Yep. Nancy?
Yeah, I was just wondering what would the benefit be to actually reducing the number, even, in other words, what's wrong with having openings? Does it change the quorum number? Is it harder to get quorum?
Yes, that's the problem. With 11 members, the quorum is 6.
But if you don't have members, it's still the same?
Still 6. Yeah, the quorum is still 6. So, yeah, so that's, I mean, aside from needing all the input and wanting the contributions and things like that, the very real problem is the quorum is still 6.
Could I also ask along a similar line, just it looks like we're always looking for someone to be a liaison to some other committee in the town or to the school district. There are a fair number of those. Some of them only meet rarely, but some of them meet fairly regularly. So if everybody on the finance committee is supposed to, shouldn't say supposed to, is encouraged to also serve on a second or third committee, it gets to be that much more difficult when you have fewer members to begin with. So
that's true.
I'm looking forward to my third retirement this spring. So I can't do anything until then, but at that point, I'm hoping to be able to step onto a spot to be a little more helpful. I would encourage my colleagues to do the same.
Thank you. And there are sort of two things. One is there are certain committees that by definition, for example, the school building needs committee, the school building committee, the school committee identified that the that they wanted a member of the finance committee from each town to be official. Some of the others, and then the, again, by definition, a member of the capital planning committee has to be a finance committee member. So there are some by definition. The liaison to the school is much more, and to the school committee is much more informational. It's much less formal. So there are those that are just helpful to have, bring information to the finance committee, as opposed to the short-term ones, like Nancy's on the negotiating committee for the cable contract. Well, that's short-term. That, you know, that will start and end quickly. So we're dealing with a couple of different permutations of people being on more than one committee. But overall, the intent is to bring as much contact both ways between the finance committee and these other committees and the committees in finance committee. Now, the thing is that you cannot be a member of the finance committee if you were either a town employee or an elected or appointed member of another town committee. It can go the other way. You can be on the finance committee and be the official representative, like I am to the school building committee and things like that, like Chris is to the capital committee. But you can't be a town employee or an elected or appointed member of another committee and also serve on another town committee and also serve on finance committee.
A couple of groups that just occurred to me that we haven't probably reached out to, Mary, is the members of the business community exchange club who live in town. There may be business owners who are interested who don't serve on another committee. Also, if you're a member of a local school council under the school district, we know that wouldn't be a barrier to also be on the finance committee, as Chris is able to be on the school committee and
Right.
on the finance committee. So
And I will
perhaps,
say, Bill, over time, I have specifically reached out to members of school councils. I haven't done it this year, but over time, I have said exactly that to members of school councils. Exchange Club, over time, we've also had Exchange Club members, so it's worth reaching out to the Exchange Club, putting it out there to see if anyone
Attorney
else is
Murray is
interested.
the current president, if I recall.
I'm sorry?
I think Attorney Murray, near where Mike Melosh's office used to be, is the current
yeah.
president.
Yep.
Perhaps we can just ask the superintendent to make a general inquiry to all the school councils and let them know we're looking for folks.
Yeah, we're going to ramp up the recruitment process for sure. But, and any of you, thank you for reaching out to everybody, to other people, and we'll just keep on keeping on until we find them. Maybe somebody will hear this meeting tonight and decide to raise their hand. That would be great.
And if we can ask the administrator to mention it at the next select board meeting.
Certainly.
Yep, that's good too. Thank you. Okay, is there, under number 9, so I did anticipate you, Chris Woodbury. Under number 9 for new business, I did put in a note to ask for a new liaison to the school committee. So we've already covered that, so that's good. Does anyone else have anything else to bring up?
The planning board revolving fund, I think the select board has had discussions about recently that I don't recall us having follow up on, and I know some members did ask for like a further accounting of that. Can the administrator address that?
So right now, they've hired an accountant to come in and review the books, right, Tom?
That's right. So Dr. Hicks negotiated with Melanson CPA. They're an auditing firm, and an agreement was signed between Dr. Hicks and the firm to undertake the audit. So that agreement was signed, maybe 2 weeks ago or so. So the work is just now getting underway.
And will those results also be presented to this committee as well as the select board?
Oh, most certainly, yes.
Thank you.
It will be a public document as well, just to make so that everyone will know that. All right, anything else? Okay, well, thank you all for your
Yes,
time
Mary?
and attention. Yes, oops, something else? Yes.
Yes, I just want to again thank Thomas Parker for serving on the finance committee. He was a valuable member of the board, and he will be missed dearly.
Certainly will be. There's no question about it. Were you here, Chris, when, oh yeah, you were on, when Bill said we're going to nominate him for the Distinguished Service Award.
Yes, I will.
So, yeah, good. It was Nancy that came in late. All right, anything else? If not, we're ready for everybody's favorite motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Thanks. And second?
A second.
Thanks, Nancy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
Very good. All right, so see you on March 9th.
Yes.
Thank you all, thank you all. Good night.